Have you ever noticed how turning 50 feels a little like crossing an invisible bridge? One day, you're rushing through life, juggling responsibilities, feeling like you've got endless time ahead of you. Then suddenly, you wake up and realize that half a century has already passed. It's a strange mix of pride, gratitude, and, let's be honest, sometimes a little bit of fear. I remember when I hit that milestone, I found myself asking questions I had never really considered before. What truly makes me happy? What habits are dragging me down? What do I need to let go of so that the next chapter of life feels lighter, freer, and more joyful? That's when I started noticing something powerful. The second half of life doesn't necessarily require us to add more goals, more stress, more responsibilities. In fact, it's often about subtraction. About deciding what no longer serves us and gently setting it aside. And once I began doing that, life started to feel infinitely better, almost like I'd been carrying around an invisible backpack full of bricks and suddenly discovered I could just take it off. The very first thing I stopped doing was pretending to be okay with everything. For years, I had been the kind of person who smiled even when I was exhausted, who said yes even when I desperately wanted to say no. It wasn't just about people pleasing, it was about avoiding conflict, about thinking that being agreeable made me more lovable. But over time, all of those unspoken no's began piling up, and I felt drained. After 50, I realized I didn't have the energy to keep living that way. Saying no became a gift I gave to myself. And something amazing happened. The world didn't collapse. People still respected me. In fact, I began to attract more genuine relationships because I was showing up as my authentic self. It felt like breathing freely after years of holding my breath. Another thing I stopped doing was comparing myself to others. Oh, that's a hard one, isn't it? When we're younger, it feels almost natural to measure our worth against someone else's achievements. She's thinner, he's richer, they're traveling more, their children are more successful. Social media only makes that worse. It's like a highlight reel of other people's lives constantly flashing in front of us. But after 50, I started to see how deeply unfair it was to myself. I wasn't living their story, I was living mine. And every wrinkle on my face, every gray hair, every laugh line told a story that was uniquely mine. Once I let go of the need to compare, I felt lighter. Life became less about competition and more about appreciation, appreciating where I was, what I had, and who I was becoming. And perhaps one of the most transformative things I stopped doing was ignoring my body's whispers. When we're younger, we can push through the late nights, the fast food, the stress, and still bounce back. But at some point, your body stops whispering and starts shouting. The stiff joints in the morning, the fatigue that doesn't go away with one good night's sleep, the stomach that rebels when you eat certain foods, it's your body talking. For years, I brushed those signs aside, telling myself I was just busy or that it was normal to feel that way. But when I finally started listening, really listening, it changed everything. Instead of forcing my body to keep up with an unsustainable pace, I began giving it what it truly needed: rest, gentler movement, nourishing food, and more water. The surprising thing? When I stopped ignoring the whispers, I started feeling stronger and more alive than I had in years. Letting go of these things didn't happen overnight. It was a process, one step at a time, with some stumbles along the way. But every little change created a ripple effect that made life not only easier but richer, calmer, and more meaningful. It's like pruning a tree. You cut away the dead branches not to harm it, but to give it more room to grow. If you're still watching and feel that these insights are meaningful, please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. As I moved further into this journey of letting go, I began to notice how much of my stress was tied not to the big, obvious things, but to the small habits I had been carrying around for decades without even realizing it. One of the most liberating shifts came when I stopped holding onto grudges. You know how it is. Someone said something hurtful years ago, or a family member disappointed you, or a friend didn't show up when you needed them. You tell yourself you've moved on, but deep down, you're still carrying that sting. For me, it felt like a weight I didn't even notice until I finally released it. Letting go of old resentments didn't mean I was excusing the behavior or forgetting the pain. It simply meant I wasn't allowing that pain to take up space in my present anymore. And when I released that, I felt lighter, as if a window had been opened in a stuffy room. Suddenly, there was fresh air. Another thing I stopped doing was saying yes to every invitation, every obligation, every opportunity, just because I felt like I should. Before, I was always busy, rushing from one commitment to another, trying to be everything to everyone. But at some point, I realized that busyness isn't the same as living. My calendar was full, but my heart often felt empty. After 50, I started giving myself permission to choose more intentionally. If something didn't bring joy, growth, or genuine connection, I allowed myself to step back. And you know what? Nothing terrible happened. In fact, life got better. My days began to feel more meaningful because I was spending them on things that truly mattered to me, not just checking boxes on someone else's list. Then came a really big one. I stopped worrying so much about what other people thought. That fear of judgment had followed me around since I was young. What will they think if I wear this? What will they say if I try something new and fail? It was like living with an invisible critic in my head, narrating every move. But the truth is, most people are far too busy with their own lives to spend much time judging ours. And even if they do, their opinion doesn't define our worth. Realizing that was incredibly freeing. I started wearing what made me feel good, speaking up when I had something to say, and even trying new things without that paralyzing fear of embarrassment. That shift opened doors I didn't even know were there, the doors to joy, creativity, and new adventures. I also stopped clinging to stuff I didn't need. You know how we accumulate things over the years, clothes that don't fit, gadgets we don't use, keepsakes we don't even remember why we saved. For a long time, I thought holding on meant preserving memories or preparing for someday. But the truth is, all that clutter was weighing me down. Every closet packed to the brim, every drawer I was afraid to open, carried a sense of chaos. So I began letting go. Piece by piece, box by box, I created more space around me. And something magical happened. Creating space in my home created space in my mind. I could breathe easier, think clearer, and enjoy the things I truly loved instead of being buried under things I didn't. And perhaps one of the most surprising habits I let go of was the need to always be in control. For decades, I tried to manage everything, the outcomes, the details, the people around me. If I'm being honest, I thought control equaled safety. But life has a way of showing us that no matter how hard we try, we can't plan for everything. Things will happen that we didn't expect, people will act in ways we can't predict, and sometimes the road will twist when we least expect it. After 50, I began practicing the art of letting go, not of responsibility, but of the illusion that I could control everything. And oddly enough, when I released that grip, I felt more peace than I ever had before. Trusting life a little more, instead of wrestling with it, made every day feel lighter. As I reflected on these changes, it struck me that so much of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us, but from the way we hold onto it, whether it's grudges, clutter, control, or the fear of judgment. When I loosened my grip, life didn't fall apart. It actually opened up in ways I never expected. And the best part? I finally felt like I was living on my own terms. As I continued making these changes, I began to notice a deeper shift, not just in how I felt physically, but in how I experienced each day. One of the most profound steps I took was letting go of the need to rush through everything. For years, I measured my days by productivity, by how much I could squeeze into every hour. If I wasn't busy, I felt guilty. But slowing down gave me something I hadn't realized I was missing: presence. Suddenly, I was tasting my food instead of swallowing it in a hurry, hearing the birds outside instead of treating them as background noise, savoring a conversation instead of thinking about my to-do list. Life didn't pass me by in a blur anymore. It became rich, textured, and meaningful. And the beauty of slowing down is that it doesn't take away from your life, it multiplies it. Another important shift came when I stopped comparing my life to others. It's easy to look around, at neighbors, family, even strangers on the internet, and feel like you're falling behind, like you should be doing more, looking younger, or achieving something grand. But comparison is a thief of joy. It blinds us to the blessings right in front of us. After 50, I began to realize that my journey was uniquely mine, and measuring it against someone else's only robbed me of peace. When I stopped comparing, I started appreciating. I saw the beauty in my own path, the strength in my own struggles, and the joy in my own victories, however small they may have seemed. I also let go of neglecting my health. In my younger years, I often put myself last, eating whatever was quick, skipping exercise when life got busy, brushing off aches and pains as nothing. But ignoring our bodies catches up with us. After 50, I realized that my health wasn't something to postpone, it was my foundation. So I stopped putting it at the bottom of the list. I began listening more carefully to what my body needed: nourishing foods, gentle movement, rest, and regular checkups. And the payoff was enormous: more energy, fewer aches, and a sense of vitality that made every day more enjoyable. Taking care of myself wasn't selfish, it was essential. Another thing I stopped doing was pretending I had to do life all on my own. For so long, I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. I carried burdens in silence, thinking I had to be strong and capable at all times. But strength doesn't come from doing everything alone, it comes from knowing when to lean on others. After 50, I gave myself permission to reach out, whether that meant sharing my worries with a trusted friend, accepting a hand with the groceries, or letting family know when I needed support. And what I found was that connection deepened. People weren't judging me, they were glad to be there. Letting others in didn't make me weaker, it made my life richer and more full of love. And perhaps the most powerful change of all, I stopped waiting for the right time to enjoy life. For years, I put things off: the trips I wanted to take, the hobbies I wanted to try, even the simple pleasures like sitting in the sun or calling an old friend. There was always a reason to delay, always something else that seemed more urgent. But waiting meant missing. After 50, I decided I wasn't going to keep life on hold. If there was a joy within reach, I chose it. If there was laughter to be shared, I didn't postpone it. And the more I embraced life in the moment, the more it gave back to me. Looking back, all these things I stopped doing weren't really about giving up. They were about making space. Space for joy, for health, for connection, for peace. Sometimes we think improving life means adding more activities, more goals, more things to chase. But for me, the magic happened when I let go. By stopping what no longer served me, I uncovered what truly mattered. So if you're watching this and you're over 50, or even if you're younger, I hope you hear this: it's never too late to make changes that lighten your load and brighten your days. Every small step you take to release what's weighing you down is a step toward more freedom, more happiness, and more life. And before we close, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've let go of in your own life that made things better? Share it in the comments, because your story might be the encouragement someone else needs. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more conversations like this. We're all in this together, learning and growing, and every bit of wisdom we share helps someone else along the way. Here's to living with lightness, joy, and courage, and to making the second half of life not just good, but truly great.